Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Bass Fishing for Noobs here on the Paddle and Fin podcast. I'm the your co-host of the show, Sean Lavery. My co-host Susie Roloff is actually fishing a tournament this weekend, so wishing her super good luck on that. I know she had a rough day one, but I just saw some pictures from day two, and she looked like she found some nice ones. So hoping that that's going well for her. She will join us back hopefully next week, but. This week, I just wanted to take. I had reached out to a couple different people, and the actual person that I actually got to come on the show today has been on the show twice already. Once way back when Ryan and I were doing the show, we did an episode on the Stupid Tube, and that was an awesome tool. I know Ryan still that's still his go-to bait to this day, I believe. Like, at least the last time I talked to him. So that was a great episode. And then I did another episode with this guest on crankbaits and specifically like balsa baits and stuff like that. We talked all things crankbaits. And one of the things I took away from that show was using balsa baits and balsa crankbaits in cold water. And I have to say that is one of the most surprising things to me is that works really well. And that has become one of my go-to techniques in cold water fishing, just because it was catching fish when nothing else I was catching fish. And I really, had, never even thought about throwing something like that in the winter, but just the action and specifically the PH Custom Lures baits that he suggested last time worked really well for me. So definitely figured it was about time we had him back on to pick his brain about another topic. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mr. Matt Gibson back to the Noob Show. Welcome back, sir.
How's it going, Sean?
It's going pretty good, hanging in there, and enjoying the kind of the tail out of the summer fishing here in Pennsylvania. How about where you are?
Man, it is hot here in central Indiana, and the bite is tough, but it's luckily we had some rain a few weeks ago. I don't know about you guys, but we've been in a pretty good drought here. So a few weeks ago we got some heavy rain, so that bumped up the rivers, bumped up everything, bumped up the lake. So at least we have water to fish now. So
that's good. Yeah, ours, we just had one pretty good storm go through last week that raised our waters up almost to the point where the river wasn't fishable, by at least by kayak. I know a few people went out and did pretty good in the high muddy water with the jackhammer. It's still a little muddy for us. I went out yesterday and talked to a guy at the ramp, and he's like, "Oh man, I was having a ton of luck on a gold shiner jackhammer." So I only had a little bit of time to fish, so that's what I threw. I got two in probably the 2 or 3 hours I was out there. So yeah, I'll take it. They're both half decent size, so and that. Yeah. I don't always have great luck with the jackhammer on the river for some reason. I don't know what it is about it, but I was like, I'll give it a try if it was working for him, and it worked yesterday, so I was thankful for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, anytime you can get a few fish, especially this time of year, it's kind of a bonus. So it's great.
Yeah. I'm kind of bummed that my topwater bite really kind of died off. I was having fun with that for a while there.
Yeah.
Popper time has come and gone, sadly. But man, that was lights out while it was here. But
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I think the first topic we're going to cover today is one that I definitely don't have any confidence in. And so that's why I'm thankful. As soon as you mentioned it, I was like, yeah, I need to talk about that because I've purchased a few bigger baits. We're going to talk about big baits today. And for whatever reason, I'll throw them just a tiny bit, and then I don't have confidence in them, whether it's I've tried it like an S waiver. I know Tactical Bass, and that was one of the first places I saw where they talked a little bit about that. And then while we were down in Tennessee for our Paddle and Fin meetup, I saw the creek crawler, and he was throwing the trace, 6-gill trace, and that looked really intriguing to me. I love the action that thing had just watching him fish that. And he was fishing a little bit right by the marina there where we were staying, and was just running it over a bedding bass until it finally got tired of watching it go over its head, I guess, and smacked it. But I was like, okay, I have to get me one of those too. So and I actually wanted to grab it. I went up to in my garage to look for it, and I have no clue where it is. So that was one I have to locate. But
yeah, for sure.
but yeah, so I wanted to see, actually, I guess we should go back to just let you introduce yourself, just for the folks who might not remember you or maybe miss the shows that we've done together. So,
Sure, sure. My name is Matt Gibson. I live in central Indiana, so just north of Indianapolis here. Not exactly what you would call a mecca of bass fishing by any means, but we have a passionate group of anglers here. Kayak angler, used to fish out of a boat. So I mean, I've been fishing, gosh, ever since I can remember. Going back, some of my first memories are with fishing, and I've been very blessed and very lucky to be able to spend a lot of time on the water through the years, and yeah, I'm just ate up with fishing, and that's what I think about my 9 to 5. I can't wait to get done with it so I can hit the water or mess with something fishing related. So
you say Indiana isn't a bass mecca, but just like looking at the Smalley games standings and stuff, I mean, they're putting up some numbers there. I mean,
yeah, we got some. There are some rivers here in Indiana that are just tremendous. One of them being the Tippecanoe River, and the other being the White River here in the city. And it's insane how good those fisheries can be. But as far as like lakes and stuff, it's pretty tough around here. So.
and when you say in the city, is it like you're on the river going through downtown? There's skyscrapers and stuff next to you.
So the river kind of sits down. You can see some skyscrapers depending on where you're at, but it is. I will say that some of the river here is definitely more city than the rest of it.
Okay.
And you can tell that by the structure in the river.
Okay.
Just like any other river that goes through a city, shopping carts, things like that are tend to be more of the structure where you get out of the city. And honestly, like fishing the White, it's interesting because it is a river that is ingrained in the city and goes through the city of Indianapolis. But for the most part, other than some of that debris and things in the water, you would really never know that some of the best stretches of this river go like right under our interstates. Like it's it's very peaceful on the river too, and a good part of it isn't accessible by boat. It's mostly all kayak. So
That's nice. That's to avoid the boat traffic. We have on the Susquehanna, we obviously have places where boat traffic does get crazy, but
yep.
there's definitely just as many places where it's so shallow or rocky that occasionally you'll have somebody on a jet boat flying through there. But
Yeah.
occasion for the most part, the kayakers have those stretches to themselves.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So, I can speak to that same thing. The first time I fished up in Harrisburg, I was there for a Heroes on the Water event, and as I was going under, there's a stretch in Harrisburg where there's like 4 or 5 bridges that go over the river, and I was just fishing underneath all of them, and the stuff I was seeing, like bicycles and scooters and
Yeah.
all sorts of things. I was
Yeah.
like, I think that's like the 4th or 5th bicycle I've seen. Man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and the more you get in towards the city, the more interesting some of the items that are floating get to. So
Oh, I'm sure. I've heard some crazy stories, but
yeah.
so back to the topic that we were going to talk about, if big baits. So what got you started throwing big baits, and kind of what when do you break them out? Or
Yeah. So going back, I don't know, it's probably been 3 years, and I'll be the first one to tell you I have a little bit of a method and kind of how I throw them, but I am like by no means an expert in this. Like this is very new to me still, and I'm 3 or 4 years down the road. But a good buddy of mine, Andy Knott, he lives here and he lives on the south side of Indianapolis, and him and I fished together, and I was just like, how are you catching these giant smallmouth in the river? And talking with him, a lot of it's related to those big baits. And I tell you what, you get a first follow or get a first strike on one of those big baits, and you're like, I'm done. Like that's the only thing I'm throwing all day then. Like I put everything else away. Even my beloved stupid tube, and I'll throw that big bait majority of the day. So yeah, Andy's been tremendous through this whole thing. I still reach out to him, gosh, all the time and ask him questions. Um, so he's really the one that introduced me, because you start looking at these baits and you're like, well, throwing a 7-inch, 2.5, 3-ounce bait is pretty intimidating at
Mm-hmm.
first.
Absolutely.
And really, it's once you kind of start getting in your head and kind of changing your mindset of what's going on with the bait and what you're doing with the bait, it will it kind of unlocks that part of your mindset, and allows you to kind of think about situations that you can use these baits. um, quite honestly, in the river, and that's mostly where I throw these baits, is the river for large smallmouth. Not saying that you can't do the same thing with largemouth, and in fact, we can talk about that. With a larger bait like this glide bait, for instance. Um, it's a 7.5-inch bait. This one's made with balsa. It's a PH Custom Lures bait that was just released. But like with this bait, for instance, if one thing that I always think about is how these baits will kind of trigger and kind of make a fish react. So thinking largemouth wise, where I typically use something like this is if I'm pre-fishing and there's, let's say, a big row of docks going down the lake, I can go and I can throw that bait in there and I can work it a few times, and that fish will actually rise. Now, I don't want that fish to hit that bait. I want to save that for the tournament, but I know the caliber of fish, and that narrows down. So it really becomes really a hunting bait that I can go and I can actually go and look for fish and look at the quality of fish that I'm dealing with. Now, smallmouth wise, we'll start in the spring throwing that, and I'll throw it all the way up. One thing with these baits is you do need a little bit of clear water.
Okay.
If it's if the water is super mud butt and it's just really really brown, because it is a site presentation, so it's probably not going to work as well in those situations.
Okay. And I know, like you mentioned, 2-3 ounces. Now, is that like a sinking lure, fast sinking? I know, like the Quakes, they come in fast sinking, slow sinking, and floating.
Yeah. So for here in Indiana, so talking about like the White River, the White River it's a pretty shallow river overall, I would call it. So for that shallow water, you would want a slow sink. So that way you can keep it in the current, you can keep it working, and you can keep it in a reasonable distance to where you can see it. I, part of the fun of these baits is seeing that strike and seeing how those fish react. You want to be able to see it. So like a fast sinking is just not going to work that well in that situation. You're fishing a deeper like weed line, like you want that that little bit heavier sink rate. I go slow, or like some of them now. Some manufacturers even rating them like very slow, and that's kind of where I like it, because one thing that really isn't talked about a whole lot, or thought about, or I didn't think about until I started talking with Phil. And Phil, he's super dialed in on how a bait will react, especially crankbaits, balsa crankbaits. And by simply changing the split ring or changing the hook size, I can change the fall rate of this.
Wow.
If it's too heavy, there's really not a whole lot I can do with it. But if I want it to sink a little bit more, I can put some spin dots. I can do things like that with this bait.
Mm-hmm.
Or like my first step is going to be, if I want it to sink a little bit more, is probably upsize the hook slightly, and then also get some bigger rings on it to help the sink.
I think that was one of my biggest concerns when I first started throwing them, just because usually they are a little bit pricier. And I was like, well, if I throw this in the Susquehanna, I'm going to lose it, because I'm going to snag that up. So that's why the trace that I got was the slow sinking one too. Cause I was like, well, I know fast sinking is probably not what I want for a shallow water, or at least somewhat shallow, but,
I totally agree with that. And quite honestly, if a beginner is getting into baits like this and they go out and they grab that heavy sink and they get hooked up, they break it off, chances are they're not going to go buy another one. So, a slow sink is definitely what I prefer.
Gotcha. And what you're saying about just being able to see it, I think that probably makes a big difference in knowing that you're working the bait correctly, or you can see that you're getting the swimming action that you want.
Yeah. So my good friend Jason Young, who's also one of the Indiana kayak anglers tournament directors, he is probably the best and most dialed in jerkbait fisherman that I know of. I can't throw a jerkbait. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like I struggle with it.
I do too.
But like this glide bait is like a visual jerkbait, if that makes any sense. Like, and I think that's always been my struggle with a jerkbait is I can't see it, and I don't know what it's doing down there.
Mm-hmm.
With this, it's very, very visual, and you get instant feedback with the glide bait. One time you'll hit it one way and it'll glide a certain way, and then you hit it with your reel and it goes a different way. You can speed it up, slow it down, but it's all visual. I can see it in front of me, and I can see that change. If I change my rhythm with my reel, I see that change automatically, and I see it real time right in front of me. Versus like a jerkbait, I can't see it. I don't know what it's.
You feel like you're doing what you're supposed to, but you have no feedback to know for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I'm always constantly wondering, okay, am I doing this totally wrong, or is there no fish here, or and then it really makes you question. But at least if you can take one of those variables out of that equation and know visually that you're using the bait, or at least working the bait the way you think you should be, and it's doing what you think it should be, that at least takes that component out of the equation. And
let's be honest, it's just fun to watch it. Like,
these
baits are really fun to watch in the water, even with no fish around. Like, it's just it's so interesting, and it's so new territory for me that, like, every time I go out and I throw these baits, I learn something. Like, and I learn, like, for instance, what I like in a rod, what I don't like in a swim bait rod, like what reel I need, what line I like. Like, I'm starting to slowly put it together, but man, it is so much fun being able to make those, like, just minor tweaks, and you see it visually. It makes all that time worth it to me.
Gotcha. Well, while we're on that subject, what is your kind of basic setup for these?
So I've been through a few different rods. Douglas makes a great swim bait rod. The issue with a lot of swim bait rods for me, anyways, is the White River, and these rivers aren't super wide. So it's not like I'm launching it when I'm throwing it. It's more of a lob.
Okay.
So like a 7, like 7'9", 7'10", 7'11", 8'2" rod, like, that's not comfortable to me to throw. So I actually went to I believe it's a 7'3" Daiwa Tatula swim bait rod.
Okay.
So 7'3", much more manageable. It's at a decent price point. It's that $120, $140 range for a rod, which isn't terrible. And then I've got it paired with a 300 size reel, just a Shimano. Gear ratio probably like that 6'3", 6'4", 6'8" to 1, somewhere around there. Is probably okay. There's some guys that like that higher speed. Problem with me is I get a little bit excited sometimes when I see that bait moving and that visual, and I speed up way too fast. So for me, that sweet spot is more that mid speed reel versus like a 7-1 or an 8-to-1 gear ratio. And then I pair it with Vicious 25-pound fluorocarbon.
Okay.
So that Vicious is it's good price point. It's a quality line, and 25 pounds seems to be more than enough for what I'm doing. There are guys out there that'll go braid to a fluoro or a mono leader. I don't tie leaders for anything. I'm a direct to line type guy.
Gotcha. And the rod that you're using, is that a heavy or medium heavy? What
It's a heavy, but it's funny. You look at like you want a little bit of parabolic action to it, so you want a little bit of tip, so you can actually lob that swim bait. And you'll see that rod, like when you go back, that rod loads up pretty extreme with these. What you don't want is like you know how a heavy action frog rod is just like a broomstick.
Mm-hmm.
It gets really hard to get accurate with these things if you have something like that, because you're almost like slingshotting. You're just
like a catapult. Yeah. Yep.
Versus letting the rod load up and tossing it. So it has kind of a parabolic bend to it, but it has a lot of stiffness on the backside of it. So.
Gotcha. I knew with treble hook baits, sometimes you do that moderate action helps a little bit too with keeping fish pinned and doesn't let them, get that slack in the line as easily. So
absolutely.
Cool. And then thinking about it, I was trying to think of, there was a person I started following on Facebook, and I think his name is Matt Good. Have you ever heard of him? He started talking a lot about big swim baits on his channel. He actually started making some of his own or custom making them too, but he talked a lot about retrieve and just watching his retrieve, like trying to figure out how you get it to do that. And his technique almost looks like a clock, like 12 9 or 12 3 6 9 12 3 6 9. And I was always curious. I like I said, I don't have a lot of experience throwing these, so I wasn't even sure how to do that. You're putting most of the action through the reel, right? This isn't that you're twitching the rod tip as much. This is all reel based.
That's correct. And sometimes, if you want that like wider glide where it's like just kind of coming in like slowly and just kind of moving back and forth, it's a slow reel. But yeah, I mean, the best way I can describe it is it's like you're chopping the reel handle. Like you're just, it's not a steady. If you want it to dance and move and be kind of erratic, you're just kind of chopping at that reel and making, going back to that jerk bait analogy, you work a jerk bait with the tip of your rod, with slack in it, and then with this technique, just think about you're doing that same thing but with the reel handle.
Gotcha.
You're kind of chopping at it, and you'll see certain baits will react different to those chops. Some of them will move really, really quick and really tight pattern. And then if you want it to like glide wide, let's say you're fishing a piece of structure like a log in the river, and you throw it up there and you want it to go slightly up current with it, you wait till it's turning that way and you can hit that reel, and it will almost like wash out and go to that side in kind of an exaggerated motion.
Gotcha. So it's kind of it sounds almost like a walk the dog almost, but you're using your reel really to do it. And the longer, I guess, when you take the time between chops is what gives you the really wide swings on it versus if you're like, I know watching the creek crawler do the trace, he was making it really run through areas quick, like very short side to side motions. But yeah, I could definitely see where there's times where you want that big old swing, especially if you have like something following it.
Yeah, and like like going back to that log in the water, like if you want to bring it over the top of it fast so it doesn't get hung up, and then you hit it and you let that thing glide, left or right, wide, and then it starts slowly sinking, or it hits that current and shimmies. Like it's if there's a fish there, there's no way that he's not going to react to that. Now he might not hit the bait. That is one thing with these baits. You will get a ton of follows, and it can be extremely frustrating at times. But for me, I've chosen to ignore that as much as I can, and take it as, hey, I know where these fish are positioning themselves then, versus being frustrated that I'm not getting the strike. And it's taken a long time for me to get there with that because, as anglers, we're like, man, that fish was right there. What did I do wrong?
Right. What could I have done to make him hit? But
Yeah.
sometimes it's not always about that. Sometimes it's
Yep.
about finding where the fish is and then
Yep.
having a follow-up or something that you can throw in there.
Yep.
I know with topwater, that was one of the things that took me a while to learn, was to always have a follow-up. So if you get a missed blow up on a topwater,
Yep.
throw in something like a Senko or something that's going to just fall slow in that same spot. And a lot of times because a lot of times bass hit to stun initially,
Yep.
and then come back and eat. And that took me quite a bit to learn.
Yeah, and these baits are some of them are so big, and so large. Like a smallmouth will come up and T-bone it,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll see the bait just spin over. And I think a lot of times what they're doing too is it's the competitive side of them that, hey, I got to get this thing out of here. Like I don't want to eat it. Like I just want this thing out of here. Or they're just curious and they'll just come up and look at it. And to your point, sometimes you can like throw a fluke out there, or something that I really like to do is the 3.7 stupid tube. I know we keep going back to this, but 3.7 stupid tube in white with a really, really light jig head. So I think it's an 1/8 jig head. In the river, it looks like a shad floating.
Oh yeah.
So like throwing that as a follow up, it can be really good.
That sounds, yeah. I was thinking the same thing, like a fluke or anything that will, hey, I hit that, now it's dying.
Yep.
I'm going to come back and crush it. So
yeah, you need something with a shimmy, and fall rate is what you're looking for in this. A lot of times in fishing, and with this, you want a really, really slow and a really natural fall rate,
right,
for that follow up bait.
And that's been Tube's claim to fame forever, really,
Yep.
right? So
yep, exactly.
It's got that death spiral to it. So
yep, and it's different every time. So.
Right. Cool. Okay. Well, I mean, that definitely gives a place to start. And as far as the different kinds of baits that you've tried, what all have you tried? I mean, like I mentioned, the S Waver and the 6 gill, or the 6 gill, not 6 gill, 6 cents,
6 cents,
trace. Yep. And I know, like you said, the pH one. Let's talk a little bit about that. That hasn't been out for too long, but what got Phil started with the pH, with the glide baits?
Yeah, so Phil had years back. He had a resin bait. So there are a couple different ways with glide baits to produce them. One of them being resin. Well, actually, one's an ABS plastic, so it comes out of a mold just like anything else does. Great looking baits, and honestly, like a really, really good starting point for an angler. And I'll grab one here. So, and this one's custom painted, so it looks a little bit to my liking. But like this is a plastic bait.
Okay.
Comes out of a mold. So this one right here is made by a guy named Bo Cessna here in Indiana. Bo's Bait Co. So like this bait right here, the price point on it, it's $45. Understand $45 is expensive, but compared to some of the other glide baits on the market, $45 is pretty good price. And it just because it's $45, I mean it's got some really nice features too. Like it has these swiveling hook holders.
Okay.
Which kind of helps you with some of the hookup and and if the fish is trying to throw the bait, so it keeps them pinned well. So you have some really nice options, and it has a rattle in it.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you walk it, it has that nice. It's a subtle rattle, not like a high pitched rattle, like a lipless or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So like something like this is a great starting bait. And then you mentioned the S Waver. It's a great bait too. Something I also look at it in a glide bait is I've noticed here in Indiana, kind of a more a less tall bait. So the height here, these baits are a little bit taller. So if they're feeding on bigger fry or bigger bait fish, bluegill, things like that, is when I'll go to something like that. But I don't know if I have one in here. I don't. River City makes a really, really good bait too. That's a resin bait. And then a lot of resin baits, like let's see. Here's probably the most popular plastic bait right now, and that's the Spro KGB Chad Shad.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Great bait at a really good price. I think these are $60-$70, somewhere around there. This thing swims really, really well. The resin Chad Shads are extremely rare to get. They're extremely expensive. But I fished this bait multiple times, and it's a great bait. It swims really, really well. The action on it's good. Has really good hardware to it. So again, that's another plastic bait.
Okay.
And then I'll show you one more here, and this is the Molex 178. Okay. So this is like I don't know. It's probably I think these are $40-$50. But again, a really good quality bait. It swims really, really well. It's got some good hardware to it. Great paint on this one.
Yeah, that one looks really cool.
You see, it's kind of translucent there.
Again, it's a plastic bait, but man, it swims really, really well and catches them well. And then you move to like a. So this is a trick shad made by Bull Shad. And this is a resin bait.
Bull shad, I was one of the ones I was thinking of. I actually have a couple baby bull shads.
Yep.
And you said that one was the trick shad?
Yep, this one's the trick shad. So
okay.
Kind of made for a little bit higher retrieve. It's a good bait too. Problem with this one is price point. You're getting up there with this one. So I think these are $190, $180. So getting up there in price. And then, so you asked about Phil earlier with PH Custom Lures. So Phil had a resin bait, much like this. He had that. He discontinued it. And then I was actually talking to him a few years ago, and he decided that he's ready to make this is a wood bait. So this is balsa. So he designed this bait. It's loosely around that old resin bait, but it definitely has some other features to it that resin bait didn't have. You can see this one's been chewed up, has teeth marks on it. So this is 100% made in America. This is made right here in Indiana. Phil hand makes every one of these, hand cuts it, hand weights it.
Wow.
And so he's the one that paints these too. He doesn't let anybody else paint them. So he throws the paint on these, and you can see it's a great paint job. He has his signature on there, PH.
Yep.
And this actually helps with the visibility of the bait. This really sticks out when you're using the bait. So if you kind of lose it for a little bit, that little white dot on there.
Just look for that white bright spot. Yeah.
Yep. And it's back. So he makes
he makes two versions of this. He's making the large version, which is 7.5 inches, and then he's got a baby one that's like 5.5.
Cool. I was going to share the screen. Let me see if I can do that because I had them pulled up, and I'll show the size difference here. There we go. Did that come up? So yeah, that shows you the two different sizes there, and he has quite a few colors there. Lots of you have the black. Like I said, I've seen black where that's the ticket too, and same with like the like the bone color where it's brighter. But then you have obviously your more lifelike ones, like you said, because in clear water, that's more than likely what you're gonna be hoping for. Because when you are getting follows, and if they get too close of a look at it, and they get they're obviously going to be like, oh, well, that's not quite what I'm looking for.
Right.
So
yeah, that doesn't look real. But yeah, I mean, he hand weights these too, and these are a slow. That's the only thing he's offering right now is in a slow. And people look at that price tag, $150, and they're like, man, that's a lot of money, which I totally agree. I'm guessing that Phil might be losing money on this because there's so much work done to it. Because he's hand cutting these for one thing. He's hand sanding these, and there'll be a video here coming out in the next few weeks of the process. And then he has the same finishing process as his other baits. So it's a double sealant on there. And if you were to pick this bait up, you wouldn't know that it was wood, because he spent so much time waiting it, and he really is like a mad scientist when it comes to these baits. Any bait of his, he has hundreds of SKUs that he hasn't even released of baits. You go to his shop, it's amazing. But this bait right here, I was talking about kind of that height. You see how that's a little bit narrower bait?
Oh yeah.
To me, this looks much more natural in the water than some of those bigger, taller baits.
The really tall ones, yep.
And this bait right here actually reacts really well to a slow wind, like we were talking earlier, or chops, either one. So for me, I've really dabbled more in this glide bait kind of realm, but something that I would probably call a big bait too, or some of these wake baits. Like this one right here is made by Fish Lab. They make this smaller version.
Okay.
Right here. And honestly, you can throw this on like a medium heavy action rod and be just fine. So I throw this one on a medium heavy action rod, typically with like no more than 15-pound mono. And it's a really good bait. I think it's $12, $15, somewhere around there.
Okay.
They also have some glide baits that they make too. I haven't thrown their glides, so can't speak to their glides as much.
Now with a wake bait, that one's going to pretty much stay on the surface, right? And you're just working that.
Yeah, you just want to slowly reel that thing. And like this one has a little bit of a wiggle to it. It's jointed, you can see. But with this wake bait, the fish almost never miss this thing. Like they eat it. And it's just a really, really good bait to throw, and it makes for an easy day because you don't have to worry about getting hung up, things like that. So it's an easy bait to manage all day.
And I was just talking to a gentleman who fishes the river a lot, and we were talking about fishing grass. And right when the river was up a little bit, it was a little bit nice because the grass was submerged, and you could fish something across the top of it without really getting down in and getting hung up. Where when the water's low and that grass is going right up to the surface and actually laying over on the surface, there's not a lot of baits that you can throw in that. But when the water gets up a little bit, like it has been thankfully lately, that is a really good technique, is to swim something that just goes over the top of that grass. And it's almost refreshing to have something to do that, because you're not constantly clearing off your bait every time you bring it back. And and I was just thinking of the wake bait being something that would be great above submerged grass like that.
Yeah, absolutely would. Anything in the water, it's great. And this bait, again, this is a plastic bait by Fish Lab. They make it in this model, and they have a large model. So this is the junior model, which I think is probably just the right size, honestly, for a lot of places, especially around here. Now, if I do want to go bigger, I go like to this. So
That's a monster.
yeah, another one of Phil's babies here.
Yeah.
Larger wake bait. This one again is made out of balsa. So one advantage of this one is, yes, it is a big bait, but with it being balsa, it's a little bit lighter, even with the weighting system in it. So it's a little bit more manageable. You could probably get away throwing this on a medium heavy action rod. I throw this on my swim bait rod most of the time, and it's really deadly for those fish that you see that are just kind of they get in that midsummer funk, and you want to throw something that they haven't seen 30, 40 times by now. And this just kind of slowly wiggling and moving on top, kind of looking like something dying. A lot of times they can't resist it. So.
Right. They've probably at this point seen so many whopper ploppers buzzing by them and buzz baits and everything where, you give them something that's a little bit slower, but still struggling on the surface. And, that's probably going to be money.
And it looks just so natural, just rolling up there on top, and they see it going side to side, and a lot of times fish can't resist it. Now that bait there, so with this Fish Lab, I can reel this one a little bit faster than I can this one. This one will start to dive after a while. It is made to be just slowly fish on top, but a great bait, and a really good lake bait as well. Not just river situation with both of these.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Basically like places where I would think on a lake, maybe like above the riprap bank where it's not quite deep because you're not calling them up from like the depths below. But if they're somewhere along there hunting, and you can throw something that you can move really slow through the target zone, and not have to make a million casts and maybe splash and scare stuff away. If it's slowly working its way through that area where you kind of have a feeling they are, I think I could see where that would be beneficial. So
yeah, absolutely. And then there's I'll show you one more here, and this is called the Wade Hog, and it's a good size bait.
Gotcha.
Don't have much experience with this one yet. Just got it, to be honest. But I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be killer. I know. He's going to kill me if he ever hears this, but Andy, this is one of his favorite.
And which one is that one, though? You said it was the Wake Hog?
Yeah, it's called a Wade Hog by Toxic Baits. Yep.
Okay. Cool. And it's interesting looking at the different joints on those baits, and some are like just eyelets with but and then some have kind of like a different kind of mechanism how they do that, but they all kind of produce the same action. I know.
Yeah.
Some of the one I have, this is this is a knockoff S Waver that I had got somewhere. It's a plastic bait, but one of the things I like about it is it has a magnet that holds the hook to the belly, so that it obviously comes down pretty easy. And I was really surprised. I didn't expect it to stay up as well as it does, but I feel like that would help me avoid snags a little bit. That's kind of why I got that when I was looking at it. So
that S Waver is a great bait. It still produces fish. It's a great bait. You mentioned earlier that you don't have a whole lot of confidence in it. One thing that I'd recommend doing, and it's hard to do because I understand I have a 9 to 5. I have other commitments other than being able to just fish. So when I go fishing, I want to catch fish. But one thing that really helped me is just taking that rod, my swim bait rod, and taking a few different baits with me in just case I wanted to dabble, and then taking a follow up like a stupid tube or something like that.
Right.
Throwing it in the boat or the kayak, and that's it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing a short trip. If nothing else, you'll at least understand the action of the bait. Something that I've always tried to do since I was a kid is every year I try to concentrate on a new technique and how to use that technique and how to use it in situations. So a lot of times, I pick that one technique and it's always tied on, and I always go out, and even if I only throw it for 10, 15 minutes, I've learned something with that technique. So I would encourage people just to throw it more than what they do.
Now, as far as the mentality aspect goes, I know like if like you watch Tactical Bass and they're talking about fishing those big like Huddleston paddle tails and stuff,
Yep.
They say that you're only looking for so many bites,
Mm-hmm.
When you go out with those. Is that kind of similar to your mindset here? Or are you thinking, it could be a big bite producer?
It's both ways. It's really opened my eyes. Like, I was lucky enough this year to have a really good finish in one of our tournaments up at the Tippecanoe River. I think it was 5th, and all my fish that day came on a glide bait.
Wow.
So you can get some numbers. You'll have numbers day. It's just like any other lure. You'll have numbers days to it. Big bait, big bite, that kind of mentality.
Right. That was the other thing I was thinking of. You hear that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of plays, but if you use it more for and kind of think of it as a search bait, and then also, I can pick up this 1 or 2 key fish in a tournament situation, 1 or 2 key fish that I need to pick up on the day. Like you just have to have that 20-inch smallmouth.
Right.
Then like this bait is likely going to produce that at some point in the day.
Yeah, last year I fished the one of the the big bass power hour where they're doing like $1,000 a month or an hour for big bass, and actually I did throw that for a while just to see, and again it was kind of a struggle for me, but I definitely wasn't giving it the time it was due. But I know folks that fished that same tournament that had luck on them and, had produced winning fish that with that same technique. So I know that it's possible. So it's something I definitely need to do more. And like you said, just make that the only thing I take out. That way I'm kind of forced to at least learn how to use it even if I don't, get a lot of hits or catches. So.
Yeah. And what you might find out is, that maybe it's something that you introduce into your arsenal, like, and you'll see a certain condition on the river and you'll go, oh, I need to pick that up right here at this bridge and fish this riprap with it because it has the right depth, it has the right clarity, it has everything that I need for this bigger bait. So maybe you'll identify that, and maybe that's the only time you pick it up in that day. But it could mean that key fish or a fish of a lifetime. My 3 largest smallmouth of all came on these baits.
Okay, cool. That right there says kind of enough. All I would need to hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think my biggest problem last year when I threw them in that tournament was just water clarity. It was not very clear. So I think that was probably my biggest aspect there. It was the Susky, and but it was flowing a little higher than normal and had some stain, so it wasn't as clear as it sometimes gets around this time in the summer. So that probably had more to do with it than anything. But
yeah, it and it is tough to kind of get in that mindset and throw it. And I still have a little bit of a block in my head when it comes to applying these on rivers or on lakes here in the state and actually fishing during a tournament day. Just something that I don't have a whole lot of confidence in yet. I know I could probably do it, but I feel like it's a larger gamble here in the state of Indiana. Trying these baits on a lake versus the river situation where I feel like the smallmouth tend to feed and want to kind of get rid of whatever the size of this bait is. So
Oh yeah, I kind of have experienced the same thing here, and it's why if given the choice, I will head to the river every time if I'm just fun fishing, because I feel like smallmouth they're just so much more vicious, and they're ready to just annihilate anything that kind of gets in their zone. Whereas lake largemouth, they're like, all right, I'll just let that go because I can just go over here and go deeper. But you hit a river smallmouth that's trying to protect his eddy, and I don't want any other fish feeding in my eddy, and that kind of thing. They definitely seem to be more aggressive, and I just seem to overall have better days on the river than the lakes. But
now I will say with this PH glide, there's a tournament up on Lake Wawasee here in the state of Indiana. So up north a little bit, very clear lake, like super clear. I do know some guys that won a tournament by a ton throwing this thing. So it can be done, but I guess kind of my point is that 3-4 years into this, I feel comfortable throwing this bait in a river, but I still have that block in a lake. Like, don't let that discourage you. Like keep throwing it, keep understanding the bait, keep evolving as an angler, and you'll get there.
Well, and I think one of the things, like just thinking back about, when you first told me about fishing the balsa crankbait in cold water, try throwing it in places where you don't necessarily think you normally would. And, a lot of times you'll be surprised at what works. Like I almost, initially when I first looked at these baits, I'm like thinking, big baits like this, you're going to be fishing them deep. And, but, it makes a lot of sense that, shallow water, you're not having to call fish up from forever, and they're much more likely to, go crash that if they, they can, see it coming from a ways away and then just, come up and smack it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the fish, they do kind of get, I don't know. It's like, it is the weirdest thing that when they come up to look at the bait, and if you start throwing it more, you'll notice it too. When they rise, it's just like they pop out of nowhere. It's just like they just bring themselves.
There's a fish there. Yeah.
And they just like stay there, and then they'll go back down to the depths. It's like that. That's just wild. And to be honest with you, like I love tournament fishing. I love fishing. I love catching every fish I can every time. But man, it is so cool watching their behavior.
Oh yeah,
stuff like this versus a lot of times we're not able to see that. Even with topwater, it's just a strike.
Yeah.
With this, there's you'll notice behaviors in fish, and you'll get to the point where you'll know if one's going to hit it or not.
Okay.
Just by their, I guess, body language,
Mm-hmm.
the way they're moving or the way they're swimming at it.
Right. You can tell an aggressive movement
absolutely.
versus just an exploratory kind of.
Yep, exactly. And man, that is a ton of fun just to witness. So.
Well, and I think just getting to know that you are working that bait in a way that is making something that's not alive look like it's alive, and you're fooling that fish into, doing that. There's something to be said about that for sure.
Yeah. It is a ton of fun, and it's man, it's been great learning this technique and continuing to grow with this technique. It's unlike anything out there that I've ever fished. It really makes you sit down and really ponder and think back to situations of, man, I wish I would have thought about this bait.
Oh yeah.
So
now, as far as getting into it, would you say go right out and buy a swim bait rod, or can you get away with, like, if you have like a jig rod, or as long as it's not a broomstick totally,
Yeah, I mean, for most of these baits, you can probably get away with that for a while. You start bumping up to some of these heavier baits, you're definitely want to get a specialty rod, and By no, so one thing that I think people get with swim baits is a lot of sticker shock, because some of these baits are expensive, some of them are very expensive, and like like I showed this Bose bait, like I've caught plenty of fish on this. $45, bow paint it however you want it painted, and it's great. Same way with the rods. You don't have to go out. There's great rod companies out there that offer a swim bait rod at a good price. The Dobbins rod in the Fury series, that's a great one to start off with. This Daiwa rod that I have, actually, if you have like a local Daiwa dealer, they're kind of wanting to get rid of some of these, so you can probably even get a better price on it.
Gotcha.
And that's like a midpoint price range. But you don't have to go crazy with your setup either. You're going to use and abuse it. Like these baits, you think about like a truck, for instance. You have a truck that you don't haul anything in, it's going to have a little less wear and tear than if you're pulling, trying to pull a trailer 7 days a week with thousands of pounds on it.
Right.
So using more of those, multi-purpose rods, multi-purpose reels, you're going to start seeing some of that wear a little bit sooner. So,
versus something that's designed to throw it, obviously.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
exactly. And it's really, I don't want people to be discouraged or look at it and go, man, that's out of reach for me, or that costs too much. Like I said, that this bait right here, this plastic bait, great bait at a really good price. Hell, crankbaits anymore, the way those prices are going up, it's not that far from a crankbait. And I understand that might not be in everybody's budget, but there is a way for you to get into swim bait fishing. So don't let that discourage you either. And like I said, that Dobbins Fury line, they have a great rod, that Daiwa rod. And then if you want to step it up a little bit, there's places like, Yak Rods. They just came out with a new swim bait rod. I think that's around the 300 mark. Leviathan, they make a specialty swim bait rod. They're up in that $300 to $600. G Loomis makes a great rod, and it continues to build. It's just like anything else, though.
Right.
Don't feel like you have to do that. Me personally, I used that Dobbins Fury line for a solid 2 years. Never had one issue with it, and it's at a great price. I think that was like 115, 125-ish.
Okay. Cool. All right, man. Well, anything else you feel like folks would need to know to get started, or I think we've covered we have lots of examples. And guys listening, if you I'll make sure I put a ton of this stuff down in the show notes. So if you're interested in checking them out, definitely check out the show notes, and I'll put the rods and reels and all these baits that we've talked about here down in the show notes, so you can find quick links to them and go out and check them out yourselves. So
no, I would say, just don't get discouraged with this. Use it as a learning tool. I think you'll learn more about fish activity with these baits too, like we were just talking about earlier. So just don't get discouraged. And also, if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. Like for me personally, I love throwing it. A lot of guys that I know love throwing it. But like, I am the biggest Ned rig hater in the world. I absolutely cannot stand a Ned rig. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't own a Ned rig. I have nothing to Ned rig with. And that's completely fine. It's whatever you're comfortable on the water with. And, if you're looking to expand your arsenal a little bit, like this is definitely one way I would lean in towards.
And I have heard the same thing, that you get 1 or 2 catches on them and you'll be a lifelong swim bait guy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's like that first muskie. If anybody's a muskie fisherman out there, it's like, wow, I want to do that all the time.
Right. All right, Matt. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I wanted to give you a chance to shout out where folks can find, follow you, and also sponsors that you have.
Sure. Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate you having me on the show. It's been great again. I always enjoy this show. I'm an avid listener of this one, and you do a great job, Sean. And appreciate you guys and Paddle and Fin and continuing education for fishermen and just getting more people out there and catching more fish. That's what everybody's here for. Like that and Paddle and Fin does a great job and is a great representative of that. So thank you guys.
Yeah, no problem. That's why we do what we do, because
Yeah.
that's what got me started listening, and the information, and that's why I'm like, if anything I can do to give back, that's what I'm gonna do. So
Yeah, and that's great. And I'm on Facebook, Matt Gibson. Message me anytime anybody has any questions about anything, and if I don't know anything or if I don't know an answer to like the swimbait stuff, I can get you in touch with the right person. We'd be happy to talk about any of the other subjects that I've talked about or anything that I know. Stupid tube, whatever anybody wants to discuss. Also, Instagram, Matt A. Gibson. Reach out to me anytime on either of those platforms. I'd be more than happy to share what I know.
as far as the stupid tube goes, to me, there is no other tube now, because I mean, every other tube I fish, it gets hung up, or I'm like, that is the only way to do it in my book.
Yeah, it's insane, and the 3.7 is a great tube, but man, I've really fallen in love with that 4.2, that little bit larger one. It's actually last night I fished an all-night tournament up on a lake here. And that was one of our key bites was on a stupid tube at night. So it's a great bait. So along those lines, thank Danny at Secret Lures, secretlures.com. They've got plenty of colors. They just released, I don't know if you saw this, Sean, a bubble gum, so a pink. Pink tube.
Which has Smallies written all over it, right?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's so great. I put my order in. Definitely want to get some of those. But secretlures.com. They're not only a tube company, they have some jigs as well. And they're known for their toad, so their buzzing toad. PH Custom Lures. I've been with Phil for a long time. I consider him a good friend of mine. Phil is an elite maker of balsa crankbaits and also getting in this big bait market. If you're interested in any of these big baits by him, either the regular size glide or the mini glide, just give him a call. That's the easiest way to do it. And his number is 765-541-0726. And get them on order. I know he was just finishing up another batch of these because he has to build them in batches, and he has some in stock right now. So I would get those orders in it if you're ready there. Also, Dubro Fishing. Without their support, it sure makes my tournament year a heck of a lot harder. And then also Moving Water Outfitters here in Zionsville, Indiana. Great kayak shop, great fly shop. If you're looking for either, get with those guys and they get you what you need. New Canoe, I've been with New Canoe for, I think this is my 8th year with New Canoe. So it's been fun. That's one thing that I'm very, very proud of is a lot of my sponsors, a lot of the people I work with. I know the owner. I've talked directly to the owner. And I've had these relationships for years. So I appreciate all the support from all the sponsors. Like I said, it makes me getting out on the water possible. So I really appreciate it.
Well, just the length of time that you spent with some of those sponsors speaks volumes to your relationships.
Great companies.
Some of those, that kind of timeline is almost unheard of sometimes in our industry. So
yeah, I think PH I've been with 6 years. Secret Lures 5-6 years. moving water outfitters. Before the company that they turned into. So I'm very, very fortunate with my sponsors, and I really do appreciate them and support them. I strongly suggest supporting them because they do support guys like me. They make me be able to go fish. So
very cool, very cool. All right, man. Well, thanks again. I know I have another topic that we talked about a little bit before the show that I will definitely hit you up with at some point to record, because that's another good topic and something that I think is a great learning experience for those guys. So, guys, stay tuned for that. Hopefully, in the not too distant future, we'll have Matt back on and we'll cover that topic as well. But if Matt, do you have anything else to add for today?
No, that's it. Get out there and go fishing, everybody. Let's get out there and catch them.
Oh, yeah. All right, guys. Well, this has been another episode of Bass Fishing for Noobs here on the Paddle and Fin podcast, where we bring you the techniques, the tricks, and the tips to help you rip more lips. You guys have a good night.